there's so many other possibilities of work and career that is sustainable. That
particularly in this country.
In this country,
province.
Like objectively, Yellow Jackets should be a Canadian story.
100%.
How do you present yourself as a female on set?
Every frame could be that one frame that makes a difference.
This is just kind of like a phase, like you'll grow out of it. I'm like, no, I'm here to stay.
Listen, you're an attractive girl, you're a little on the tall side, and you're really lucky because your hair is so flawless and luscious. And then luscious was weird.
The aging thing, I mean, this is why the substance is so relevant.
It took me until like 2 weeks ago to realize you can get paid for this video. You were sick?
Because I always say, I'm like, oh, well, we're not saving lives on set. Like, it's not a big deal. But you know what? We kind of are.
I'm in the film industry, like I'm the cool kid.
I just started putting on shows for my family and making them like buy tickets. And yeah. I was a
producer.
It was a business.
Welcome to the Toronto Film School Roundtable. Today we're joined by actress, writer, producer Amanda Brugal and 4 amazing alumni to discuss the industry. Let's dive in. All right, hello everybody.
Hi.
Hello.
It's wonderful to have you all here, so thank you. What was the inspiration for joining this wonderful industry that we're in? So was there a specific show or film or moment that said, yeah, that's the industry for me?
I was in high school and I was badly failing drama class. It wasn't the cool thing to do and I wanted to be cool. But my drama teacher suspected that I loved it and I was really pushing those feelings down. And so she said, if you audition for the school play, I promise that I'll pass you and I won't give you a failing grade. And so I was like, whatever, I'll audition for this. And I remember sitting in the theater and it was all the veteran theater students and they were all sitting in the first row and they were doing their weird theater games and clapping and singing and I was in the back, really cool. And so I went up and I did my little monologue and the moment I stood on stage and I looked out at the chairs, all in empty theater, but the possibility and the chairs facing me, you could say it's a bit of narcissism, but it's also just this open space and the possibilities and just, I felt like that was the moment that I was bit by the bug and I'll never forget it. And I try to, if I'm not having a good time on a project, I try to go back to that place and remember where I started in that moment that I fell in love with this.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. And it was one teacher who saw that in you.
One teacher, Jennifer Jenkins. And I still talk to her.
Yes. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I think for me, it was like, for as long as I could remember as a kid, like I just loved watching movies and my mom was really into music and my background's Indian, so like Bollywood singing and dancing, like it did impact me growing up because it was just like, it takes you in that world and just, makes you believe that those actors are singing and that's their real voices. And I was like, yeah, I think it would be cool if I get to do that one day or
share that joy,
be part of that world. And so I think for as long as I could remember, I always knew like that was the path for me and I just stuck with it and here we are.
That's fantastic.
To echo off of that a little bit, I kind of knew when I was really little as well. I just started putting on shows for my family and making them like buy tickets. And I was a
producer.
It was a business. I just remember I was putting on like Rapunzel, like my own take of Rapunzel, and then I would charge my mom and like my aunt for tickets to come watch me. And then ever since then, I was like, I used to say when I was really little, I was like, I want to be an entertainer. So that's kind of what that's what it started with. And then I just think when I just started to watch film growing up, specifically actually, when I watched Kill Bill, I watched when it first came out, I was very...
How old were you?
I shouldn't have been watching it. I should not have been watching it. But I was like, these are such badass women. And it's just so cool. I just thought that movie just really struck me as a kid. I was like, this is so sick. It's like a lead woman, like Michelle Williams was in it, like this badass Black woman. And it was just, I don't know. I just thought it was such a cool movie and just really kind of solidified me wanting to be a part of the industry and wanting to make movies like that. So.
Oh, very cool.
I remember when I was younger, my mother, she bought me like one of those, I don't even know what kind of camera it was, those little tiny like quick pick cameras. Yeah. And then I would always film myself. And then once I like fell over a chair and I filmed it all and I made it into like this little TV series. Like I went and I like cut the images together, I like put stuff together. And that was like the first time I ever edited anything and like put it together. And then obviously all through school, like I'm not a good public speaker. So I would always choose to make a video and then just play that in front of the class instead of actually talking and stuff.
But you were talking.
Yeah, you're right. Talking behind the camera in private and then making it into something, editing it. So that's when I realized it.
That's really cool.
What about you, Maxine?
I did begin acting. I was in my middle school production of Grease. And then eventually, like, I was like, oh, I'm too cool to be like, you know, be in acting. And so I just started doing stuff behind the like scenes. But I think that like, yeah, like it's so fun. Like, I mean, this is such a fun industry and it can be so fun, and going to work and enjoying it is such a big deal. But then also there's like the catharsis aspect of like something that's really emotional, and like movies can like, and TV can change your life. Like a good story, if you're really watching it correctly, you're kind of bringing it back to yourself. And I think that my life has like always been so affected by like good storytelling and what's on the screen. And it's just like, you know, such a big deal to me, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, and it's important to see that the stories that are shared that matter, right? That make that connection to us as well, right?
Yeah.
So, and that make us want to kind of go deeper into, investigate something or learn something new too. So it's a really amazing medium that way, right?
Like I truly wouldn't have like come out without seeing like the representation that was like on the screen and being like, oh, like this is something that like has affected me so deeply that I feel comfortable like coming out and like changing my entire life just because of like the right story affecting you at the right time in your life.
Yeah, it's incredible that way, that it works that sometimes, you know? It's just that one moment that somebody wrote or somebody performed in a certain way that makes you connect with it and that lets you see as a young person the possibility, right? So you've decided that you want to be an entertainer, you want to be behind the camera, you want to be in front of the camera. And so what were your next steps? Like what role did education play in making that a reality for you?
I think for me, like when I think about education and film in specific, there wasn't any moment that I decided I wanted to do like the education side. I just knew I wanted to be on set. And I was like, I'm gonna, whether it's like, you know, with friends or like I'm helping out with the student plays or, you know, the drama in my high school, it just was very like, I wanna be a part of that world as soon as I can, as fast as I can. And then I got into Toronto Film School for the acting program. And I graduated and then pivoted to camera, right? So it was like a crazy shift, but I feel like it just was meant to happen that way. And it helped me getting the education from Toronto Film School because it was very like, it laid a good foundation. I knew a little bit of what was going on. I knew a little bit about, you know, the basics of the gear or the set lingo, which kind of helps you as you're like, you know, moving on set. And I think that was it for me. I just was like, I want to get on set and I wanted, because it's a very hands-on industry. You can't really have like a book to explain to somebody how to like.
I was just
about
to
say that. You know, like you can't slate. How do you slate an actor? How do you do a lens change? You just have to do it. You just kind of have to get your hands in there, and you gotta learn from there. So that's just my experience on it. I don't know if anybody can, you know, relate to that or want to add.
Yeah, I think like the education is so important because it also like helps you understand like a routine and like having discipline, but also like the connections are so important and like the friends that you make. And this industry is so heavily influenced by like the connections and like, you know, working relationships. Yeah, it's so important.
Yeah, that I would say that too. The discipline, I think for me, I went to York University and I went through the acting stream and we would have to memorize a sonnet. every week. And if you didn't memorize the sonnet, you weren't admitted into class. And then if you weren't admitted into class, you'd fail and you'd get kicked out of the program. And this is not like getting kicked out of summer camp. You get kicked out of university for not memorizing a sonnet. And it seems like a very drastic way to handle things, but stakes are high all of the time in this business. And so it really prepared me. It put the fear of God into me to like have my lines learned, to show up prepared, but also the interpersonal relationships, I think, in this business are so important. And the idea that it's not just you and your stream. Do you call it streams at Toronto Film School?
Program.
Program. Like it's not just you and your program, and you're not the whole. You're just one part of the business.
Yeah.
And so we would have crossover classes with the film, like crossover meetings with the film students, and then there are people going through for crew and people going through for design, and just realizing that no one is any more important, because I know for myself, the actor portion of me, we're treated like babies. And so if you buy into that early on and you don't have a reverence or respect for all of the other parts of this machine, then you start to be kind of a jerk, and you start to really ignore how beautiful it is because we're all working together. So it really put a foundation in me to respect the entire machine, and also know that you're not the most important. That's all. Yeah, school will let you know that right away.
No, I would say for me, it's helped me with like a lot of my prep, because I do think I agree with you where it's like there's certain things that once you're on set you just can't learn until you're on set. But yeah, like Toronto Film School, especially for my prep and like my process, and I feel like just learning from so many different teachers, you kind of get to like, okay, I like this and I also like this. You kind of get to make your own little concoction of the way that you get ready for things. So I think that education's helped a lot.
I just told you not to put your hands under the table because of a teacher that we were talking about. I had a teacher that was like, don't put your hands below the frame. So at the beginning we were
And we all of a sudden we just both take off our hands.
You do keep things. You do keep things from certain teachers, right?
I will also say, like, I'm still in touch with my TFS teachers. So they've ended up being like a constant support, or just mentors, or just like people that have seen you grow. And I think that's a really good takeaway from TFS for me personally, because everyone's journey is always so different and unique because they paved their own path in this industry. But the teachers have been like a constant support, and I'm always in touch with them. They're always reaching out to me, and it just feels really like, there's a nice like energy out there of support and like genuine people that want to see you succeed. And I think TFS gave that to me through the form of coming there, and it's really nice to have that. If I look back at it.
And do you find yourself giving that back to others?
Absolutely.
That support back?
Absolutely. I'm always being mindful of how I'm moving in this space and in this world. And one of the ways that I did that just recently was I created a social media page, which is a page led for the BIPOC community and for females in film. And that's my way of giving back, to build that community, build that, sense of just compassion and empathy for each other. Because I think women are great with that. Women really do look out for each other. Yeah. And when you find your tribe, it's like, that's what we're going for. Yeah. So.
I definitely think that Toronto Film School is what started my professional career, because before I kind of had film, it was like my side job when I actually went to graphic design school before, like after high school, but in the summer I'd always be working. I was an operator at a racetrack. So it'd always be like the side hustle. And then I'd work for Rogers TV voluntarily because I enjoyed it. And then finally, after graphic design, when things weren't quite clicking and I wasn't finding my path, I was like, why don't I take this more seriously? And then Toronto Film School is the first time I realized that you can make a career out of this fun passion I have. And those were like the first jobs I got were from the teachers and stuff, because when you come in, I was like a more mature student. Like I wasn't right out of high school. So I felt like I came in with a different mindset. It wasn't about partying. It was like missing a class costed a lot of money back then.
Of course, yeah.
And I took it seriously. I made it a professional career. Like that's when it started. So I do think it's important. It builds a foundation, like what you're saying, to build on the art.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important. I like it. everybody else in my family chose something involving science. My parents are both like, they have like, it's all science backgrounds. So I was kind of the weird youngest sister that was like, finally.
I love that you said that, because like I feel the same way. This is why we're connecting so
Yeah.
well. I'm the black sheep. Like my younger sister does what my mom does, and my older brother does what my dad does. And I'm like, I have tattoos. Like I'm in the film industry. Like I'm the cool kid. It's just like, I think the support is like so important, right?
Yeah.
Like without the support, like it can be a really tough industry, and it's a marathon, right? So you have to like keep going and keep, pushing yourself to keep going. And without the support from your parents, like it's just, it's really tough. It can be
Yeah,
really
it would be
tough.
tough. I know my parents, they always resorted back to like, after their job, they would always come home and watch TV together. Like that would be their fun conversation. That's their entertainment. And my mom, because I always say, I'm like, oh, well, we're not saving lives on set. Like, it's not a big deal. But you know what? We kind of are. Like,
Look at what happened during COVID.
Yeah.
Everybody
Yeah.
watched
we needed
Netflix.
our industry. We really did, to keep us and our mental health. So,
Yeah.
yeah. I have a different perspective on that. I do think we are partially.
Like, kind of going off of what Christina said, like my advice to parents would be like, let your kid explore it, because my mom, I remember very clearly, I got into Toronto Film School, and then I also got into 3 universities, and then she's like, Garima, let's go for a walk. And I was like, okay. And we go for a walk, and she just was very, like open about this discussion, where she was like, look, universities, colleges, they're always going to be there, but right now is your time to sort of explore what you feel passionate about and what you really want to do. And that really, it opened up another window in my head where I was like, wow, so the possibilities are there. That encouragement and support from her is there. And that really helped me just run with, this dream of mine that I'm getting to live every single day. And like Maxine said, it gets hard sometimes. It's a very tough industry. It's very, there's a lot of things that you're required to kind of dot your I's and cross your T's, or whatever the saying is. I don't know, it's like, the fact that I had that conversation with my mom, it helped me. So I think to parents who are wanting to have kids that want to explore this, give your kid that 1 year, give your kid that 2 years. It's not going to take away from their life. If anything, it's going to help them explore life and see what they're kind of, capable of doing. And I think I think about that moment when I'm on big sets, and I'm like, I wouldn't be here if she didn't say, go for it,
I think about that all
Yeah.
the time when I see artists, or just think about people you pass in the street, and how much their parents could have had an influence on their lives, and how many artists are out there, like bankers, and inside there's an artist, but somehow they had parents who thought that they were doing well by saying, no, don't go in the arts, it's scary. And then now they're just not living, fulfilling their dream. That we were all very lucky that we had the support from parents. So I would say, and as a mother who does not want my children to go into the arts because I want to save them the stress and the heartbreak, I also want to support them, because I know I wouldn't want to do anything else for the rest of my life. I'd do it again. I'd get prescriptions to drugs earlier, but I'd want to do it. I'd want to do it again. And so I would just say to parents, have patience. And to your point, just it doesn't have to be forever, but allow them to explore at the beginning.
And it instills a different kind of confidence in somebody when they're out there making that kind of, mark for themselves and having that journey on their own, rather than being told, hey, like, we come from a background of science, so that's kind of your path, I feel like I have so much more confidence in myself and in the kind of risks that I might take with my career, because I know I have a solid support system with my parents, right? And I think it goes, like, I could speak for you guys as well. It's I was gonna say, I think it's so important, especially if your kids are in the arts, like to have like cheerleader for parents. I also feel like a part of like succeeding is like having that support system, because if you have everybody against you in the how are you going to believe in yourself? Like, you can't do everything on your own. Okay, kudos to the people that do, because I know that definitely exists. But I think it's so important, like, for parents. Like, my little sister, she's super young, she's 11, but she like loves singing right now. And my mom is the same way with her that she was with me. Like, she completely encourages it, and she doesn't treat it like, oh, you like to sing? Like, that's so cute. No, she takes her
very seriously. She believes in her, she supports in her, she gives her so much love. And I'm like, that, like, if I have kids someday, that's exactly how I need to be. You know,
I agree.
Like
I agree.
cheerleader.
And to know that there's work in this, industry,
totally.
right? Like that it's, it's not just the people on the screen or the people who wrote it or the director. There's so many other possibilities of work and career that is sustainable. That
Particularly in this country.
in this
In
country.
this province, there's work. I think that's the thing
Yeah.
that floored my father. My father is South Asian, and so I think it's the thing with him is that once he realized that and as I started coming up, the business started getting more here. Once he realized that this is something that I could make a living, like a consistent, sustainable living, that he jumped on board a little more. But it's a reality. Like you don't. It's not when your parents think that you're not going to become necessarily the next movie star. That's not even that's just like a small percentage of what this business entails.
Yeah.
And so just patience and grace.
But that's it. Like as the artist that you all are, right? Regardless of your medium, right? If you're the writing, artist, or you're the camera artist, right? You're all telling the same story, and it's all visual, and you're all contributing to the bigger kind of story that's being told and being received, right? So
The human experience.
the human experience, and I think it's our I think parents just want that security for us, and a lot of us don't come from families of artists, so it kind of explaining that along the way I think is also interesting. I think now that I'm at this school, my mom kind of understands what my job is. She's like, oh, teaching, I get teaching, I got that's good, I can understand that. But everything that led up to this point in my life, I think she was like, she kind of got it, but she was like, I still am not 100% what you do every day. Like, you and me both. But now she gets it. Like, it's like teaching I get. But it is, I think, if we as a society could put that emphasis on arts and this industry in particular, which is a viable industry in this country, I think it would be really helpful to get that messaging out to parents, so that all of us who were making plays and telling stories to our families and I love that you're charging them.
I know.
Oh my God, I didn't even think about that. I was like, oh my God.
I was trying to make a buck.
Good on you.
It took me until like 2 weeks ago to realize you can get paid for this business. You were sick.
I know. What is happening?
Like you forget that you can actually support yourself.
Yeah. What was the most kind of ridiculous piece of advice that you got in this industry? And it could have been beneficial. One of mine was somebody told me to be bold.
Oh God.
Which is like such a blanket statement.
Yeah.
And it was a gentleman. It's the way you receive the advice too sometimes, and it's kind of ridiculous. Not that was ridiculous, but it's how you use it and take it to you. So that one was kind of funny for me. Is like, I'm also kind of bold anyway, so I'm not really sure what you're getting at. But then it was just like, but then every now and then it kind of keeps, this was like maybe 15 years ago, but it still pops up every now and then when I find myself kind of pulling back from a situation or something, that little voice kind of creeps in, be bold. And then I'm like, all right. So it was kind of in the moment, I was like, dude. But now it's that one piece that kind of keeps popping back in, which is interesting.
I have, it was a director, I'm not going to mention his name, but you all know him, told me, and this was, so much has changed in the business for me, is I'm Black biracial, and I did not see anyone who looked like me when I first came on 20, 30 years, my agent's here. How long? A long time ago. And so the advice was, listen, you're an attractive girl, you're a little on the tall side, and you're really lucky because your hair is so flawless and luscious. And then luscious was weird.
Not the microaggression.
But he was saying, and this was a Black man, and the advice was, keep your hair straight and keep it luscious, and you'll get more work, because no one wants to deal with a nappy-haired girl. And I remember, I think about it all of the time, but I do have to be quite transparent. It did affect me. It affected me because I still don't go crazy with my hair, and it's something that imprinted on me at such an early age, and I was so vulnerable. Shame and also being someone who is both races, not really identifying with one group, being told that the other one is abhorrent and will stop me from working, it really affected me. And so I saw this person 2 years ago, and told him how much it affected me and how disappointed I was. And he realized, and he sort of backtracked. But I think that was the crappiest piece of advice.
I think the hardest part of something like that is that like they felt like they were trying to help you.
They genuinely at the time felt like they were doing me a favor.
Yeah, and that is so disgusting. Like that's so gross.
If someone can't relate to this part of my story, I think that I would sort of say that if someone tries to erase a part of you or tell you that that part of you needs to be erased for you to fit into this industry, yes, it is a visual medium, but like for you to erase a part of you that would be considered unattractive, first of all, the business has changed so much, so that's not true. And secondly, go F yourself, because this is a part of me that makes me interesting and someone else will resonate with too.
Yeah, absolutely.
But at the time, it was crazy.
Mine is kind of similar to that.
Hair related?
I have a hair one that I was gonna back away from because I was like, you already took the hair one, but you already know I heard a couple of things.
Yeah.
But I was on a set one time, and it was also from another Black actress, which makes this like a little bit more disappointing. And that's so sad. I remember her telling me, she was like, and she was again thinking that she was like trying to help me, but she was like, hey, by the way, I wouldn't be so like on set. Like I wouldn't be so like, you know, like you're very like girl. Like I would kind of like run a different set. Like I would tone that down. And I was like, because this is the way when I auditioned for this, I was myself. Like I went into the room and I met with the director and I was completely myself, and they like hired me like this. So why should I be, I also felt bad though, because I feel like that's probably the way that she felt. Like she needs to present herself in this industry. And so I wasn't like, I didn't come at her about it, but it was like it was a really weird situation because I felt sympathy for her, but I also was like, damn, like that's crazy. Like what an insane conversation to have.
Is she older?
Similar age to me. Like
Whoa.
similar age, so like maybe a few years older than me at the time. Like I was maybe like 23, something like that, and then she was like 26 or something, 27. But
it's really disappointing when you experience microaggression for somebody that's exactly your race or you know what I mean? You guys come from the same background.
Yes.
It hits more deeper than somebody that doesn't know your story or doesn't know what it's like to be in your shoes. I experience that all the time too, but I think the most, like for your question, Michelle, I think the most ridiculous advice that I get and I constantly get even till date. I mean, one time someone was like, don't wear nail paint to set, it's distracting. And I was like, oh, okay, copy that. And I never do it as camera. And I was like, how are you gonna, okay. But like the one that stuck with me that I use as a way to kind of motivate myself is I had this operator and he looked at me and he was like, how old are you? And I was like, you know, I told him my age at the time and he was like, okay, so you got maybe like 5 years in the industry? And I was like, okay. And I just kind of was so like in shock that I was listening to him and he was like, listen, it's only going to be a matter of time until you start to think about having kids, you're going to get pregnant, you're going to like leave. So like, don't get your hopes too high, you know? And in his mind, he was like, I'm trying to set you up for the real world, which fair enough, you know, a lot of, that is the reality as women, we, you know, but it's so funny because all of the women that I look up to, they're mothers and they're thriving in the industry. They're all full-time working DPs, camera operators, Steadicam operators that have like 2 kids, 3 kids, and they have such a balanced, you have kids, right? And it's like, it's doable. I don't know why there's this stigma around it or there's this kind of perception that once a woman hits a certain age, she's gonna leave. And that was so ridiculous. And I still get it to me sometimes. People will be like, you know, this is just kind of like a phase, like you'll grow out of it. I'm like, no, I'm here to stay. Thank you very much.
The aging thing. I mean, this is why The Substance is so relevant. This is why it's such a relevant movie. God, that is so heartbreaking. I also had received like weird advice from another trans woman. Like when we were I'd written a feature last year and we were interviewing like for directors, and one of the directors that we interviewed with, like she was just like, yeah, like I can't get behind the premise of this story, like with the like volatile nature of it and like the volatile nature of like, you know, like trans people in the media. And like, she just hadn't really like read the story. Like I'd written a comedy, so it was like kind of like out there, but it wasn't like crazy, but she totally took it in the wrong direction and was like, no, this is like bad for us. Like we have to like represent ourselves in a certain way. And it just kind of like totally threw me off, just because I'm like, I'm not gonna change my writing and my expression just for, you know, so that the other people can view us a certain way. Like that to me seems so wrong, especially like now it's so important. So yeah, it just like totally like kind of threw me for a loop, because I wasn't sure if like, I'm like, oh, maybe this is a bad story to be out right now. But I think that in the end, no, like it just came down to how she interpreted it. But I don't think she'd actually read the entire story. Like I think that this was just based on like the log line.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you're so right when it's coming from someone that is like part of like your community, like that can really affect you like so deeply.
Yeah.
All of the things that I'm hearing right now, just between these stories, the through line I'm getting is the people that do or have given us any sort of advice, it's all fear-based.
Yeah.
Don't do,
Totally.
we do. And whether it comes from themselves because they've experienced something bad and it's genuinely a gesture that they're trying to help you, or they're just a fearful person, or they don't want you to succeed for a variety of reasons.
It's a very
All of it-
competitive industry.
All of it is fear of like this, and there's already enough, it's already hard enough. And so to funnel fear into someone, I think it's it's insidious in a way, like through all of our stories, this through line is.
I read something recently which I think resonates for the stories in just this moment right now, where it was like, sometimes people will pinpoint something in you that's missing in them.
Yeah.
And it's like, you see an ambitious girl, you see a driven girl, or you see a young person, doesn't even have to be a female, right? But it's like you see somebody that is making moves, going places, making connections, using their time in a really valuable way, you know? And then that triggers the fear, and oftentimes the insecurities kick in, and people are like, oh my God, is my position at threat? Or am I gonna lose my job? And it's like, this industry is always evolving. Like, you know, you had said, it's changed since the time you've joined till now, and it will continue to grow and evolve. And people just forget about that. They think we're here, we're, you know, set, and nothing's gonna change. But it's, I think that quote is like a really fitting quote for something like this.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Just kind of taking it, changing the tone a little bit. Was there a role or a moment on TV that you truly feel was an empowering moment for as a woman?
Yeah, I mean, for me, definitely. So like growing up, especially in the 90s and early 2000s, like the only representation of trans people that was in the media for me was like, you know, like bad guys like Ace Ventura or like Silence of the Lambs. So like growing up, like that's why it was like always so like considered wrong for me. Or like Jerry Springer, for example, like trans people were the butt of the joke, like for so much of that. But then in 2015, there's this little show on Netflix called Sense8, directed by, created by,
I love Sense8. Yeah,
it's so good. I mean, and like so much representation, but also like the Wachowskis like created it, and they're big like idols for me for like trans women like directors. But also Jamie Clayton, who's like a really cool trans woman actor. Like that was my first time seeing like a role on screen that was like, oh, she's like normal and like she's someone like to aspire to, and that really deeply affected me and like helped me actually come out, just because of like seeing that and just being like, oh, like I can be normal. This isn't something to be ashamed of. This is something that is empowering. So like, and that's why like, you know, diversity and representation on the screen is so important, because like all it takes is just like one good good representation that can affect one person so deeply. It'll change your life.
I was gonna say mine's there's this movie called Death Proof.
Oh my God, I love Death
Yeah,
Proof.
okay.
Low-key my favorite Tarantino movie.
Same. No, it's actually one of my favorites. And it's just, the women are just so badass and cool. And, you know, bit of a spoiler, but at the end of the movie is like a bunch of these women who all work in film. So it's like one of them's an actor, one of them's a stunt girl, one of them is like a makeup artist. and they beat the crap out of this like serial killer who's been killing these like women. They find him and they group up on him and beat him up. But that movie, when I watched it, I was like, cool. Like this is amazing. And I'm like, it's just great to see women in like these like cool, badass, kind of like you'd usually see like a male kind of dominated role like that, especially when I was younger.
Like that action hero. They're the ones doing the butt kicking.
Exactly.
Right?
And like, especially when I was younger, like I didn't know as many directors. So I was like, Quentin Tarantino's like the biggest director ever.
I was like, Kill Bill, Death Proof, you are really into
I was like, but yeah, so honestly, his movies, like even what's it called? Jackie Brown too, like all of those were just, I really did like the way that he put like the way that he displayed like women. Like I just thought it was cool and strong and just diverse and really sick. So yeah. I like Death Proof a lot.
Awesome.
Mine was Linda Hamilton, Terminator 2. I remember walking down my hall and seeing a commercial, and she was doing pull-ups. And my mind exploding and being like, whatever that is, that's me. I want that. I want that. And just seeing a woman with machine guns and not sexy, like she was sweaty and gritty, and not once did she was she a damsel in distress. And there was a couple times where she was the one who had to help the machine and save the machine. But it really was that pull-up scene of seeing a woman with biceps, with a body type that was similar to mine. I mean, like I could tell I was like starting to be different, and seeing a gritty, tough, strong, muscular, unattractive woman. It blew my mind.
Yeah, I think that was the first time that she wasn't glamorous,
yes.
right? Like there was a real kind of bringing down her. She's so attractive and beautiful.
Well, Beauty and the Beast she did before.
Yeah, and then to bring and to really make her that gritty and strong and powerful, and not make her strong and powerful, but still have amazing eyeliner, right? Because that's how it would have been. That's the Wonder Woman, or Charlie's Angels, kind of from when I was growing up. Now I'm aging myself, but that pull up. I don't know what it was about that. It was just
iconic.
That physical
It's
representation
iconic.
of strength, and she was like. And the determination, I think.
Her. I'd never seen a woman do a pull-up on screen. And the fact, like, it's crazy to never have seen, I didn't know, this is how bad it is. I didn't know women could do that. That's how, like, I understood that there's gymnasts and I've seen the Olympics, but it was something, I remember distinctly the hallway, the television, what I was wearing. Like, it was so impactful.
It's amazing that one moment can be so empowering, right? And I think we have to remember that when we're creating too, right? Like it's that every frame could be that one frame that makes a difference in somebody else's life. Is there a moment or a role or
I'm finding this question hard to answer, honestly.
Put you on the spot, I'm sorry.
I don't know if it was like, my mother was such a strong woman, so she always really raised me, like I feel like I never really felt I couldn't do anything ever. I never felt like I could never do anything ever as a woman. And I never really felt different. I don't know, maybe it was because I had like 2 older sisters too. Yeah. Like there was nothing like limiting, not even
it's
like
beautiful.
physical. I know, I am finding it tough to answer this question.
It's a good thing.
I feel like
it's amazing.
Yeah. But definitely when we're talking Kill Bill, there was certain movies that I really was like, this is so badass. Like it just really resonated with me. I find now, I've learned more of my limitations as being an adult in the film industry, like learning, okay, females are not getting this job position as often. And like why, like we talked about like the operating thing, and I'm trying to understand like why haven't we been given these opportunities? Like why, like you're trying to figure out the whys now as an adult, like analyzing it and like, is it strength? Is it this? And so I'm learning, I don't know, seeing other women do it is definitely my kind of
motivation.
This woman's doing it. Yeah, like, you know, recently looking into Steadicam operating, really looking on Instagram, like, what woman is my body type that does this? And there are, you know.
There absolutely are.
Talking to other very strong male cam operators, they're like, it's actually a lot of finesse. Like, it's not about just being really strong. Actually, sometimes being smaller, it makes you more nimble and able to do it even better. So that's been more my realization, is more seeing other women like in the industry.
So thinking about like female creators, is there a female creator who you think doesn't get enough recognition? Or is there, is there somebody who you
I
think?
have one.
Yeah,
Right
let's
there.
go.
This is like the first time where I'm like,
got
I
so
have an
excited.
answer.
Is it Quentin Tarantino?
No, it is Quentin Tarantino. It is a Quinta Brunson. Quinta Brunson.
Okay.
I've followed her career for a while. Like, I kind of grew up in like the big like YouTube era, and so when she was on BuzzFeed, sometimes people you can just kind of tell though that they've got others. There's so much more that could be going on for them. And even on BuzzFeed, she was funny. She was funny, and all of her like creations were so good. And then she just kind of fell off for a bit. Meanwhile, she was like creating a whole show, creating an entire show. And then she created Abbott Elementary, which is so funny.
Yeah.
It's so good. It's so black. Like I love that show, and it's hilarious, but it deals with like, I have a lot of friends who are from like Philly, and like the school system, like the public school system there sucks. It's really, really bad. So her creating a whole show about that and also intertwining things that are like really going on. Yeah. Love Quinta Brunson. Like I think she's just so cool. Yeah, I love her a lot.
That's awesome. Yeah, great start. Anybody else?
I would say Sarah Polley.
Sarah Polley.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that she doesn't, like she's like Academy Award nominations and wins, and she's book best-selling author. She's doing okay. Just for her to be like a global phenomenon, which I think that she is. I think I know she is so bright. She is so caring, so like feminine forward, mindful, and just the way that she handled the set with women talking and childcare and the ability of childcare and the limited working hours and not even limited, just realistic working hours. Yeah. Employing more females, just the way her mind works, the stories that she wants to tell, the diversity that she wants to include in some of her stories. I think that she is a national treasure for us, but I just wish that there was more eyes on her, particularly how she runs her sets.
Yeah.
I would also say like the women that I work with, because I'm from the crew side, so it's like all of the female DPs that I've worked with, like Maya Bankovic, Ann Tipper, there's a female operator that I really look up to that I'm fortunate to say she's my friend, but also a mentor, Sarah Mulholland. These are all like women. Yeah, she's awesome. And these are all women, I think I look up to them, not just because they're like in these roles, but they come on set and they are the kindest people. They don't need to be that alpha, moving with an iron fist kind of mentality. They'll talk to you with such kindness. They'll be soft-spoken, especially like I just got off of a show with Maya and she's like kind of pregnant. So it's like she's still out there and she's like working and she's, super open to even just one-on-one conversations, still giving people that learning opportunity. So I feel like I look at the women that I work with, they often don't get the recognition because, it's like the actors, which is, there's so many great talented females that are not getting recognized. But I think for me, I thought about this question and I was like, hands down, it has to be those three women because they're also shaping the way that, like I'm looking at things and I'm thinking about how I want to lead. And it's like, you don't have to be that loud, stern person. And sometimes we get so caught up in being on set and just going through the motions, we don't realize it. And it's really, it feels nice when someone comes up to you and says, hey, Garima, did I tell you I think it's really cool what you're doing? Because I don't see a woman in that role. I can't believe you're lifting that camera right now, or like, how do you do it? And it feels like a good moment to be like, okay, actually I am kind of doing it, and like so are these other people around me. So that would be my answer.
That's great. Yeah, good name checking, people that we don't normally hear too, right? And solid Canadian DOPs, right?
Solid.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I was gonna bring up there's this movie that came out last year called I Saw the TV Glow, and that is has a trans woman who's the director and creator of it, and it's like definitely flew under the radar, but it's also like an inherently like trans story. So I think that's maybe why it didn't get as much like popularity. But I thought it was just like so good, and I can't wait to see what this director does going forward. And then I was just gonna say also, on the show that I'm working on, we just switched into block 2, and we switched from having our second AD, our first AD, and our director from all being men to now they're all women. So we have Jill Compton, she's our first AD now, and our director is Birdie Elwood, I believe her last name is. a Brit, and then our second AD is Ali White, and they're just like, I love having like all this switching a block to. I'm like, oh yeah, this is gonna be such a fun block. Just knowing that like I'm like, this is just, it's gonna be really fun on set. And Jill's like such a sweetheart, but she also knows how to like put her foot down, get the set moving and everything moving along. Like her catchphrase is like quick like a bunny. So like I just it's just like really nice to like have like good crew that it's being led by women.
Yeah, for sure. And do you find in when you're, because we're all working on Canadian projects as well, so do you find that there are more women in the industry from Canada, like from our Canadian productions?
Oh my God, yes. Yeah, yes. I find from both sides of the border, I find there's significantly more women working behind the camera in Canada, and talented women, and that, again, because I've been doing this for a long time, at the beginning, not ever seeing a woman and sort of slowly starting to see people. I remember the first time I saw a female grip, it was sort of like the Linda Hamilton movement, where I almost passed out, and I was like, what are you doing? Like, just why are you here? Just not realizing that was a possibility. And now it's Maya and Sarah and just and female directors, and just also just female like crew members, sound. Yeah. Oh my God, a female and so it's been. I do notice that it's rising at an exponential rate in Canada versus the US, which is cool.
Yeah, very cool.
To just contrast a little bit, what I'm noticing is there's like a lot of females in not quite the leadership roles.
Not HOD.
We were talking about how like the operators, right? About 400 operators in our union, and 11 of them are female, which is a disgusting.
And like one is a steady.
Say it louder for the
yeah. But they're working on it, and it's acknowledged, and I think that's a really good step forward. That's being acknowledged, and they're working on initiatives that are going to get females more confident to take on those roles, which is really important, because it's the confidence. Like, you're right about like, how do you present yourself as a female on set? Because you don't want to be, I don't know if you can swear, but bitchy or anything like that, like that quotation. Like, you want to be able to be a confident leader and not have to worry about, potentially coming off. Because I find like it's hard to be a leader as a woman, to get the respect from the men and all that. Like, it is hard.
Under the bus. Like,
We really do. And if we don't show up when we get the opportunity, then it's like, I told you so. Can't do it. And that's a scary feeling, to not be able to show up. So our union is working on pushing for different initiatives to help us be able to show up when the chance comes. But yeah, I really want to see more of those like leadership roles, like the higher positions. There's tons of second ACs. It is really great. You see so many females. It is great.
I'd love to see like, I've honestly worked with like a lot of women on set. I feel very like lucky about that. So I have, even seeing all the different positions, I was like, oh wait, on this project. So I'm like, the only one I haven't seen that often though in the States or here is I don't see that many female like DOPs at like, I've worked on 2 projects where that's happened. But I feel like it's also up to like the show creator and like the director though, because the projects where it was a female DOP and the set and everybody in the production was very like diverse, it's often up to like the person who's running the show or the director to like really make those decisions. And I find like the people that I've worked with that are really mindful, those are the best sets, and usually where you do see that diversity. But the people who are like, I just have my story and I have this, and whoever gets hired gets hired.
Right.
Yeah, I think you notice a difference with those sets, and just like it's just all white men around you.
Energy is not. Not great.
It's like you could have a great story, but you can just tell that someone doesn't care about the rest of the people that they're hiring.
And how that affects
how
your story could be told.
Yeah,
right?
100%.
Like
crew morale
undermining
is
themselves.
so important. Like a set with bad crew morale, like it's just like you're not looking forward to coming into work every day. Like and like having fun on a set is like life changing. Because like you look for, and like your creative, energy is so much better, and like the cohesion between the crew is so much better. Like, and this leads into like one of the things that I hope we talk about is that like projects we never want to end, because like when you're like on a show like that, you're just like being like, I'm so sad this is ending. I wish I could work on this show forever, and our industry is so temporary because like it's always like, you know, we work for 4 months and then it's done, and then we might get another season, and you might never see these people again. So it's just like, yeah, like it's so important to get that good energy flowing.
Where do you see Canadian TV and the Canadian industry heading?
Canadian content, like unless it's an American show coming here and filming in America, like a lot of Canadian content that is typically Canadian is like so stereotypical. That is the only way to make it like palatable to like a global audience or to an American audience. And I think that like I really want to see going forward like Canadian content that is, you know, a better representation, I guess, of like what we are here, and I guess continue to be unapologetic about it. But there are a lot of Canadian stories, and we just have to be vulnerable and share them, I guess, right?
Yeah, I think I agree with Maxine on that, where it's like, I see the direction that we're moving in. We're starting to open up and have more shows that are showing more, whether it's visual representation of how different people look on screen, but it's really about the relatability aspect. Like when I look at it from a production side, you get a show that comes in, sure, you have a brown person, a black person, a white person, you're hitting the diversity box, but like, are you making the script, are you making the story relatable, that it's hitting the audiences that you want to target perhaps, or are you, you know, really like, is it relatable to the people that are going to watch it at the end of the day? So I would love for it to go into that direction where it's just a little bit more meaningful content. And sure, yes, representation, it's nice, but it just feels very, right now it feels like we're just at the tip of discovering more of it. But I hope it doesn't become performative where it's just like box ticking.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I would love Canadian cinema. I think Canadian writers should, you know, get out there, talk about their stories, or, you know, people to back these projects up, because I think there's really, you know, relatable topics that we can all share and talk about.
Yeah. I think just for Canadian television, I think that in general, we were talking about this a little bit. We touched upon this briefly, but in general, networks, the very few networks that we have, the creators from the top down need to trust their audience more. And by that, I mean, need to trust that their audience are very savvy and they're intelligent, and that they have now, because of globalization, have access to a lot of different types of stories. And so that we don't have to sort of water things down to hit a general audience. If it's true to the vision of your filmmaker, if it's true to that person, they're Canadian, it'll likely sort of resonate, and people from around Canada will respond to it. I think we're really afraid, for a lot of reasons, to push boundaries and to really make bold choices. And unfortunately, because where we are in proximity to the States, we can just turn the channel and watch an American show. We don't really know how to identify between an American show and a Canadian show. And so the only way I can say is to sort of trust that your audience will go there if you feed it. I think of Kim's Convenience. And while, yes, there was a diverse cast, the amount of people that would come up to me, that still come up to me and say, oh my God, you remind me of the pastor that was at my parents', and this person is a white person. And so when Ince created it, he wasn't creating it thinking, I want to do something safe. He was bold at the time. We were in university, and his first, we went to school together, and his first play reading of Kim's was when we were in university.
I know that.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, yeah, it was so cool.
That's so
Especially
cool.
for Pastor, when I got the Pastor Nina, because he was like, remember that play? And I was like 95 years ago. But he didn't do it. So I think I just think bigger swings, and to trust that us as Canadians can consume stuff that's cool and edgy and different, and we won't turn the channel.
But do you think it's like fear, or do you think it's comfortability? Because I feel like us as Canadians, we just are in a zone where we're so comfortable in the space that we're just not able to push the boundaries and take that risk.
I mean,
like
I think
when
this
you
is
go
such
to,
a difficult conversation to have.
I don't know, but I feel like I think about it with crew hiring. I think about it with content.
I feel like it's both. I was gonna say something I've noticed with Canadian TV is that once they notice that they do something well and it's well received, they're like, let's keep on doing it, which
Right.
I get it. Yeah, exactly. Like Hallmark does the exact same thing, which I get it for like money making reasons. Like we have a lot of great comedies that come out of Canada, and that's awesome. That's so great. I do think that these like Canadian networks could be greenlighting and listening to a lot bolder stories and a lot, because I would love to see something a little bit more grounded, maybe about like a couple and how they're living in the city. Like just something like, instead of, I might not want to see something where it's jokes all the time. I want to see a couple that's either slowly going through a breakup, or maybe they're falling, or there's just something complicated about the situation. Maybe they want to open up their, I don't know.
A slice of life.
Yeah, we were talking about this earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I'd love to see more Canadian TV that I feel is relatable and a little bit more grounded in something, a little bit more moving, and it totally
So interesting, because
exists.
I feel like that's kind of what we do
So do I,
really
yeah.
well. I feel like that's those stories that we tell are not that kind of American set up punch. I feel like what we do is we do tell those stories, like Kim's, which is that beautiful, the specificity of it being a Korean Canadian family. I think allowed it to be so much more accessible.
Yeah.
Because we all had an appa and an amma who wanted the best for us, regardless. And I feel like children ruin everything, right?
Yeah.
That's a relationship. That's a family trying to kind of get through life, right?
Yeah.
So. Not everything is, there are the very specific kind of niche Letterkenny Shoresies that are resonating. And I feel like what we do translates around the world. So I feel like, it is those kind of things that we do that are specific to us, like North of North right now.
That's
That's
great
so
show.
amazing.
That's a really great show.
Isn't it? It's like
my
there's like
list.
this
You guys are giving me
beautiful,
To me, that
quirky,
feels a bit different even. Like I like
but not in
like
a negative quirky. It's
No,
quirky and
no,
this beautiful.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, even when I started watching that show, I'm not deep in it yet or anything, but that to me feels a bit different, because even the film, it feels quirky and it feels a bit like weird, but in the best way possible. And I love seeing
I
something
think that's
that
what I meant
reads-
about trusting your audience.
Yeah.
Trusting that an audience can because it's still very Canadian, but trusting that your audience is going to be able to absorb quirky and love it.
Yeah.
And that they'll allow it.
Yeah, and you can push those things as well.
Yes.
Sort of also did that, right?
Oh,
Like,
God.
Sort of is
Yeah.
a perfect example of what I was talking. Where I think
Yes,
that's
that was
more of the
very
stuff
yeah.
that we need. Is
Yeah.
stuff like sort of. Like I would love to see more shows like that come out of here, and stuff like this is not Canadian, but like this is just something different. Like I May Destroy You, which is an HBO show.
Yeah.
Stuff like that, which we could totally have. I think it's just
Yeah.
people being a bit nervous and scared to greenlight it.
Yeah.
But I'd love to see like even like darker stories, like things like Netflix has, like Ozark. Like we could do stuff like
that would be
that,
a
but
cool
they
Canadian spin.
don't. Or when they do greenlight it, they give it one season, and I feel like we just have to give something a little bit more of a chance and support.
Objectively, Yellow Jackets should be a Canadian story,
100%,
even
yeah.
though it's not. Like it's not. Like it is, but it's
like
not.
Almost everybody is Canadian
Yeah.
on that project. Yeah.
And it takes place in Canada.
Yeah. I think that's. I think there's so many reasons why.
There's so many reasons.
There's so many reasons,
Yeah.
we talk about how the industry is changing, and there's things happening in our industry that are effective, like AI and things like that. And how do you feel about technology kind of becoming a bigger part of this industry and changing the way that that we're kind of doing the work, or how it will influence performing or writing, or just how we make content here.
Good question.
I'm just gonna say it. I'm gonna be the Sarah Connor of AI.
Yeah.
I'm rude to Siri. Okay. I'm like, you know what? Like I'm so against it. The only thing I want AI for is like helping make my Spotify playlist. Okay. Like,
which
sorry.
I love.
Yeah, which I love. Okay, I can get behind that. It's just like for a creative business, it has no business being here. And the problem is that it is a business, so it's all about money, and this is like just such a shortcut for a lot of executives, and people would be like, okay, like we can just do this instead of hiring the people, but you can't make the stories that we do without the human part of it, right? So like, I think that it's inevitable that it's going to be part of the future of our industry because this is an industry and it is a business. I just hope that we don't forget about why this industry is so important and why it affects so many people, and it's because of the human element.
Yeah, like you really relate to the characters you're seeing on screen. You're growing up with them. Like when you see an actor, I forget the child's name in Mad Men, but like I've seen her progress. I've seen her progress and grow up. Like I know what they're talking about, like replacing actors with AI.
It's crazy,
like that just you're
So
not gonna have that same attachment that you do to these characters. Like I just don't. I believe you won't. I don't think they can do it. But.
I'm petrified of
Yeah.
it. Like quite boldly, I'll say it, petrified of it. And at the beginning, like a lot of podcasts, and a lot of specific to the industry podcasts, talk about, some people are defending it, saying it's a tool. And we have tools like green screen, and we have tools like the ADR. ADR is a tool. You're not getting the recording on the day. You're actually manipulating it, and you're recording a voice. But ADR and green screen can't sort of take on a mind of their own, and we can control it. Like right now, AI is in such stages of infancy that we couldn't even possibly contemplate opening up Pandora's box. And so I do understand it's a tool. I do understand that it's helpful and it's cost cutting, and it will allow really cool filmmakers to probably get their vision out faster because it is like financially a good choice sometimes. But I'm petrified of it, and what it means for the artists, what it means for creators, and what it means for humanity, and how we sort of understand stories. My children sometimes aren't able to tell the difference between an AI image and an image, and I am, because most of my life I haven't seen it. But
she'll see an AI ad and think it's completely real.
Too.
It's crazy.
And so if that's what the AI is right now, and we're just in, it's a fetus right now. What is it going to be when it turns into a teenager? What does that mean for us? So I'm petrified.
Yeah.
But I do like Spotify.
I do. I need help with my playlist. Okay.
It does have it. I feel like it is. That's this kind of. I feel like it is so early, and so it just feels so scary. And I feel there are going to be parts of the industry that it is not going to be able to be as impactful as it as it could be. I think. But
also,
I think
also as like a writer, I'm just as an aside, I'm offended that like now they have an AI assistant for emails where it's like you will write your entire email for you.
What does that mean?
Like Google and like Apple now have like an AI assist where it's like, I want to send like this email message, like write this email in a nice way, and it'll come up with the entire email for you.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is also the problem, is that like everyone's trying to chase perfection because they're afraid to be vulnerable. And it's like, no, being human is imperfect. And that is what teaches us so much more, and like helps us become who we are so much more, is like the imperfection in us, you know? So it's just like, I'm offended as a writer.
Garima, how do you feel about like talking more on the technical side behind the camera, potentially having like focus pullers?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That
Stuff. I know we haven't even like really touched on that.
I think I was thinking about that. I think it's one of those things that we'll just have to adapt to, and if it gets integrated into, behind the scenes, it's kind of like back in the day when you had film before digital came, right? It was a whole new conversation for people, and they were like, oh my God, how do you guys feel? And I feel like there's a similar conversation with AI where it's like, there'll be, I do believe we will be able to find a balance. I don't think it'll completely get rid of film, but I do think it'll alter some, roles, some positions, it'll definitely impact us, but I still have faith that it'll be balanced and we'll be able to make it work for us and use it in the right capacity.
I think the common trend in our industry is like being able to like adapt.
Yeah.
This might just be like our next step, like from technician side, is like we have to adapt to somebody's going to have to program and prompt the AI to do what we need it to do. I'm assuming like our jobs, that's where our job security lies.
Yeah, like not necessarily, there would be job changes, not necessarily eradicating or job losses in terms of numbers, right?
Absolutely.
Have you ever had a project that's been hard to leave behind? And want to go with you last, Amanda.
Sure.
Just because there's an obvious kind of sort of Damocles of a project that you're on right now. But is there a project that was hard once it was over for you? That when you were done with that job, that a little piece of you stay behind, or you carry a little piece of it with you still?
Yeah, like for me, last summer, I worked on Fubar season 2 with Arnold and the gang, and it was honestly, it was life changing. It was my first time having like a project that I worked on where like I was like looking forward to coming into work, and like I was having so much fun, and like, you know, halfway through production, I'm like, oh my God, like this is gonna be over soon. Like, and I was trying so hard to hold on to like being in the moment and just enjoying it. And then, you know, like afterwards, like it was like, wow, like I truly felt like a different person. Like it had like cemented this change that had occurred to me like at the start of it, and who I was at the start was like so different than who I became towards the end of it. And now my girl Monica is up for an Oscar, so I'm just like, so it's like so heartwarming, and just like it was truly a life-changing experience. And sort of was also like another show that like I was like, it was just the entire crew, like I was like, oh, like there were so many LGBT people, and like I just like I felt so connected to the crew, and like when that was over, like I was like, oh, like I like truly had like a good cry, being like, I don't want it to end.
Yeah, for sure. I can see that.
I just finished, not just, but before Christmas was on a feature called Tiny Fugitives. But what was special about this was it was the first time I was working with my best friend. Yeah. So Bridget and I, we've always talked about it, but this was the first time, like all the stars aligned and we were on the set. And on top of that, it's like our whole camera crew. I've never once, like there was not a single day, and we went through the trenches. Like we were in a quarry when it was pouring rain, so it was all muddy and awful. We were in forests, like up hills, like all this crazy, crazy places. I always enjoyed coming to work every day, and I wanted to work, and I wanted to be there with my girl. And it was the first time, and actually trailing back to a question you asked very early, because I never answered it.
Here she goes.
I was told very early on, like, grow thick skin. Don't show your emotion. Yeah. That was like my big thing, because I'm a very emotional, like I wear my heart on my sleeve. Like I'm very emotional, and I'm also not really good at hiding my poker face. Like I don't have a poker face. I'm very honest. So yes, if it's a tough day on set, like I keep positive, but you still get upset. And if something's happening personal life, this is what's hard to like, what I found very hard about the film industry is separating your personal life from work life. Because to me, it's just my life. So, you know, you deal with a breakup, you have to still show up on set. Like you're not allowed to get emotional over anything because you have to have this thick skin. But for the first time, you know, working with my friend, I could be my authentic self every single day. I never had to be like, oh, I hope I'm okay, like emotionally. So this person, like I work good with them and all that. No, it was like every day, I just know they had my back. Even like the days I had my period where I'm like a little grumpier and like kind of sore, like she had my back, you know? It's like, and that, irreplaceable. Like, I hope so badly that the next job.
And the energy you saved, not hiding all of that.
Yes, it's like, I can actually just do good.
Got to put that into your work.
See, and this is why Severance is so relevant right now.
Very good movie.
I'd say for me, probably it would have to be Utopia Falls. Yeah, when I did that project, I'm like, even now with doing other projects that I've done, I just felt very blessed. Like it was like Black creator show. It was again, such a Black show, such a diverse show, like so queer as well. Like it was just all of these things that I'm like, how great for a first project. Like what I've heard so many of my friends complain about certain things in the industry and they're 100% valid. But I was like, I just felt very lucky with that. And I also just feel like that's a character that, I don't know, I felt so very intertwined with like my being. And even now, I hold that character very dear to me. I just feel like she's always, like, it's just, I don't know, it's just something that's always very much alive still, if that makes sense. But yeah, that project was like emotional for me to be done. I remember like leaving my trailer, like, this change was the first thing that got me booking too. Like it kickstarted stuff. So I was like, it was just a big deal for me, and I'm like really, really grateful for that opportunity still. Yeah.
It's amazing.
Nice.
Garima, is there anything?
Goodness, I think every show, honestly, Michelle, I feel like every show, because there's a part of you that dedicates so much time into it, right?
Yeah.
You build these connections with cast, with crew. I always like leave set a little, it's like a bittersweet moment, because I'm like, if it doesn't get picked up, it's like the last time that you see all these people that have seen you every day, every morning. If you had a good morning, bad morning, they're there. You know what I mean? It builds I like building connections with people, and I think like that's always been my favorite aspect about it. So it's always sad to leave the set and be like, oh, this, like, you know, maybe we might not see this person again, but I'm always grateful for it too, because I'm like, okay, this is, you know, the next set's going to be even better. It's going to be even, you know, it just pushes you. But yeah, it's always a bittersweet moment for me. The last show that I did, I had a wonderful team, like down to the dailies that were coming in, and it was just a nice energy as a collective. So it's always like, wow, I wish I can replicate that on another set, or I wish I could, you know, go to the next thing that I'm on and have that same vibe. So I would say every set. I know it's the basic answer, but it truly is every set.
But it is
part of you
it
that
is,
you
right?
leave,
Like,
and there's something new that you take.
that
So
you take,
Yeah.
yeah. Nice.
I feel like I know you want me to say.
No, I don't want you to say. I'm just saying.
But
I didn't want it to be that one. I didn't. I wasn't sure that it would be that one.
You know what, with Handmaids, who gets to do a show for 10 years?
Yeah.
It was almost 10 years.
It's incredible.
And I started also as a woman I was like 37. And so as a Black biracial woman at 37 to suddenly have her career like hit a stratus, it's unheard of, especially when I came from a time where people said at 35 you're extinct, also don't have curly hair. Like it was a beautiful, beautiful experience. It was wonderful. But I was so happy to see it go. And goodbye.
Sounded like a tough shoot.
No, it was a
Nice.
beautiful shoot. And we were so close, but it's 10 years. It's the character. I didn't really have a tremendous amount to do on the show. And so really it was the relationships and the friendships and the fact that I got to meet Margaret a couple times and hold her hand. And it's like I celebrate all of it, and not for a second. It's the one thing I did do on set. Not for a second did I ever take for granted that I was living out an almost unthinkable dream of being my age in this country, and what it has done for my career. I was devastated when Kim's ended. Devastated. Devastated. And Canada's Drag Race, but that's for a different reason. But for Kim's, Pastor Nina is my soul, and she is, like how you say you carry a character. I carry her so closely to me, and I wasn't ready to let her go. And probably because we ended early, I didn't get a chance to mourn her, and so she still like rears her crazy face every once in a while. But that was the show, and it was also the cast. It was the content and what the show meant to Canada. I think that was a big thing for me, specifically Canada. That I just have a lot of. It's raw still.
It is from it is from
I
me
can
too.
imagine. It was yours.
But I didn't mean that. I didn't think it would have been the latest one, but just because I imagine you had been on it so long that it might
for so
have been,
long,
and you were able to wrap it up. But I wondered if it might have been our Kim's.
It is.
Is there a piece of advice from a mentor or a teacher or a class, like something that happened in a class that stuck out with you throughout your career, and that you'd kind of want to kind of pay it forward a little bit? That you, not the ridiculous one. This is the good one. This is the good one. That you want to.
Like for me, I got a great piece of advice from a mentor of mine. His name's Andrew Moody. He's also a teacher.
I love Andrew Moody.
Yeah, and he's like a wonderful friend of mine. I love him dearly. He told me, he's like, you know what, like just like sky's the limit. You know what I mean? Like don't be afraid to reach higher. And I think I carry that with me every day, because I think I'm naturally very ambitious and driven in general, which helps, but it sort of in those moments where when you reach a certain stage, you're like, I'm doing these kinds of shows, this is a good space, but I don't really rest on my laurels. And I think that that's a great reminder to keep pushing, keep thriving, keep aiming for those things that you want to be, the positions that you want to actually be in rather than the one that you're in. If you feel like, you're lacking something, you're not fully able to be just passionate about what you do. So that his advice of just like, you have unlimited potential and don't, forget that. I was like, oh my God, yes.
Right. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. And as women too, sometimes we get carried away with the noises that come at us. So it is very easy to be like, okay, I found my space and I'm gonna, like take care of it. But it helps, at least for me, just off of my experience, to just push the bar higher. And then it, bridges the gap for the people coming in the future and the younger girls that look up to you being like, she did it, I can do it. Or, there is representation of me on screen, someone that looks like me, and I can also do the same path.
Yeah.
So that was solid advice that I got from him.
That's great.
Yeah.
I didn't necessarily get advice, but with working on Sort of, like it really taught me with Bilal and with Fab, like trying to get better at and creating a story with sharing your vulnerability. Because like, it can be so scary, but like you sharing your own vulnerability inspires others to like, share their vulnerability or like come to terms with stuff that they're vulnerable with and like come to terms with like something they feel shame for or like, and so I think that that's so important, like having strength in sharing vulnerability and like creating a good story that gives you catharsis with something that you're vulnerable with is like, as a writer, like that to me is the best thing that you can do as a as a creator in general, right? Like vulnerability is something that is empowering because again, it's a human thing to be vulnerable, and it's as a creator, like that is truly, I think, the most important thing that you can do, right? So yeah, that's for me.
Mine is a quote, and it's worrying is like worshiping the problem. And I pull from it, sometimes more, sometimes less. The other day, my partner, he found me in the corner of the kitchen and I was like worrying. I was like, worshiping the problem. And then sometimes I'll let it go away for 6 months. But truly, and it was from a teacher from a long time ago, that we, as artists, and as women, and just as creatives alone, as humans, but really as creatives, we worry and we take on a lot and we carry that energy, the energy that you were allowed to put into your work because you didn't have to carry all of the other stuff. And we worry so much. And whether we like to say it or not, we are so concerned with everyone else's opinions. We're concerned about the image that we're upholding. Are we good? Are we okay? And all of that energy, all you're doing is worshiping the shit. Sorry, is that it? All you're doing is worshiping the problem. And so every time you find yourself doing that, just worship something else. Worship the good part of you. Worship your dreams. Worship the energy that you want to put into making something successful. But nothing's going to come out of you worshiping the problem. So I think that helps.
Mine's a little bit like niche and like industry-y, but when I first moved to LA, I feel like that was the first time where like the industry kind of hit me smack in the face, where it was like, oh, I'm not just the actor here. Like there's the whole town. It's everyone's trying to act. And like one of my mentors, like Deborah Akila, who I love her so much. I remember I had a roommate at the time who was like, even now, she was booking like crazy. And I had just moved there. So we were complete different. And I was like, damn, I feel so bad. Like seeing this around me, like I'm so happy for her, but it's hard because I'm like at the complete opposite. I'm not getting these auditions. And so she always told me, she's like, instead of like having a competitive mindset or like worrying about other people, she's like, instead be inspired by those people. Because if you really think about it, she was in the same position that you were in. She was doing a little movie called Tarantula 3D 3 years ago. And now she's on like HBO. So instead look at those stories and those people as like, oh wow, that's great that they booked this. That's great that they did this. It means I can probably do it too. Like it's, so it's honestly reframed my entire mindset where I've never, like since then, like since 2018, I haven't really had that moment of like, damn, wish I got. I'm just like, oh, whatever's for me is for me. And that's
Yeah.
so amazing that she got that, because damn, maybe I'm gonna get something like that like next year or
Exactly.
whatever it is. But very, very valuable piece of advice. I feel like if I didn't hear that, this industry would have hit me a lot harder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this world is so mindset based too. Like you constantly, sometimes it's just you telling yourself the positive affirmations or the, you know, I'm here, I'm going to take it one day at a time. Like the amount of times I go to a quiet corner on set and meditate to kind of center my energy, because it is a very like isolated world, right? Even though you are collaborating with people, it gets very lonely very quickly, especially the higher up you go and the more competitive you want to get. But that's a good, I love that she said, instead of looking at other people as a competition, look at it as inspiration.
It's great. And then you
great.
learn a lot from those people
Absolutely.
too. Like every set that I'm on, I'm always just like,
Yeah.
ears, like, let me listen to everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Mine's very, I always like owe like the way I do things on set to like a lot of the early sets that I was on. And one of the first sets was with Maya and Carly. And it was, we were literally just doing such a simple task of like moving the camera from one spot to the other. And I don't know why this, like it just, I always will remember that Carly said this to me, but she moved the camera and she's teaching me. This is like my first day on set. And she's like, okay, so you have to move the head and the tripod sticks. And then she like kind of turned back around and she's like, but I guess if it's too heavy, you can separate it. And then she like walked away and then she like came back. She's like, but you should really be able to do both because this is your job. And that just like hit me. And it was the like, she's right. She was right. But I realized like you can do it both. She taught me how to do it properly. She taught me how to lift. And she's like, she taught me really like there is no limitations for females in this industry.
Yeah.
And like look at what she's doing now with the underwater camera operating and stuff.
So
She's
pretty
been a
amazing.
big inspiration to me since the beginning of my
She's
career.
cool.
But she's always stuck
Yeah.
in my head during
That's great.
moments like that.
Yeah, there are ways to do it, but do it properly.
Yeah,
Yeah, know how to do it properly.
Yeah.
I love it. All right, final question. This is a fill in the blank, so it's going to be easy, she said, because she doesn't have to answer it. So fill in the blank. The future of women in the creative industry is?
say limitless.
Positive.
Limitless.
Yeah.
Limitless.
Positive,
Yes.
limitless.
Positive.
Yeah. It's looking good. It's looking,
Looking
good. I
good.
mean, yeah, I would say there's so many women now that have this open-mindedness that they're coming in with, and the kind of leadership that they bring is so, it's like the kind of leadership that you've always dreamt that you have. So I think it's paving such a wonderful path for people. It's looking really positive and limitless because you never know where
There's
it
no
takes
cap
us.
anymore.
Yeah.
Like we don't know where things are gonna go. I think we're just gonna keep like excelling, going up.
I can't necessarily speak on like cis women and their experiences, but like as a trans woman, I can like kind of speak to that, especially with what's going on in America right now. Like it's very scary and it's super important to like not downplay that like for trans, like being a trans woman, this is something that they can't take away from me. I mean, there are people that are saying like, oh, like you're not a real woman. Well, I am a real trans woman and I'm here to stay and I'm not going anywhere, right? So I just wrote like the future of trans women in this creative industry is thriving, not just surviving. Like we're not just getting by. Like we're gonna show them that we're so much more and we're not going anywhere. So I just wanted to say that because I think it's really, really important right now.
It's very well said.
Yes.
Well done.
Mine is stealing from yours, but mine wasn't an is, mine was an isn't. And future of women in this industry isn't a trend.
Yeah.
So I feel like we go through
Nice.
ebbs and flows, so it isn't a trend.
Yeah.
Isn't a trend.
That's a good one.
I like that.
Yeah.
The future of women is innovation, say, because I think we are real pathfinders in trying to make our way and navigate through a male-dominated industry, honestly. Like it's been for years and it's been acknowledged and now it's changing and we're now the forefront, we're the beginners, we're the pioneers of this new way and this new future. And I think it's very, like, we have to really innovate our way through,
Yeah.
pave our way.
I think so. I think I will answer it. Because you're also so good and inspiring. I think the future of women in the creative industry is powerful.
Yeah.
And I think we are the backbone and through our womanness, we'll be able to weather a lot coming forward.
Yeah.
I want to thank you all so much.